who is the Rain Man? Interesting title, Rain Man. Why Rain Man? We're gonna find out. So what's going on? I'm gonna click to this picture here, and what are we seeing here?
So we are seeing the elements. That's why we're talking about this. We're going to be identifying some of the elements, the symbols, the different names of gods that Baal worship takes the form of.
Okay.
So notice the goat, the pentagram, the all-seeing eye will come into play. They kind of infer that there's an eye and a third eye on that goat.
Yeah, this is an AI created image, so it's like it's only doing what you put in there. But yeah, I see a lot of stuff going on. I see there's a symbol behind the goat head.
Yeah, that's actually a mapping of the zodiac signs and the stars and moons and overlaying planet worship along with Baal worship. That's really, we're going to get into that as well, probably in other presentations. Right now we're laying the foundation of understanding these things before we get into more depth.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on.
So I just want to mention that why are we speaking about this?
Yeah.
Mainly because for those who don't know, well, we've been deceived. We don't really see it in our culture today as obvious. A lot of us have been numb to it when we do see it. And we have to know what it looks like if we're not going to be deceived by it all. And the Bible says, let no man deceive you.
That's right.
So we want eyes wide open to see what we're going to see. And I have depictions of this because in all of its gore and nastiness,
grotesque explicitness,
yes, we are going to see just how disgusting it all is because it's necessary. It is necessary because when we're always cloaking everything as a culture in positivity and dressing things up to always have the right words to say. It's
artistic expression.
Yeah.
That's what I hear a lot. You know, people, they'll do this blatant satanic ritual on stage at a Grammys award or this Euro award thing, and then they're like, oh, it's just artistic expression.
Right. But most of the time it's because we all are told not to speak unless we can sound like we're positive and manicured or cultured all the time.
Right.
We want to be civilized.
And that's what I hear a lot about when we expose things like, you know, Dragon Ball. They worship the dragon, and the dragon is Satan, and there's all these other elements too, but they're like, you guys are racist. That's their culture. I'm like, look, you can't say that sin is cultural and it's acceptable. There's cultures that they approve of incest, pedophilia, all these things. Are we going to say that that's just culture? You can't excuse sin by saying it's cultural, and I think that's one of Satan's tricks right there.
Yeah, it's not a cop-out. We can't use that as a cop-out.
That's right.
So a lot of the time, nakedness, this is another thing. Worship of the goat-headed god as Baal or a bull is going to be seen along with these symbols of the pentagram. And lots of people, you see a child in front there by the altar on the image to the right. And as we're going to get into it, you'll see why. The Bible tells us in the next slide that we're just going to cover real quick the names of Baal because we have to understand that as well. So the name Baal actually means owner, lord, or husband.
It's a complete counterfeit for Yahweh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because Jesus is supposed to be our owner, our lord, our husband, but I'll have to go look at the Bible verse, but there's a Bible verse that actually talks about this and says, if you contrast the way they describe Satan and the way they describe God as our Lord, husband, and owner, it's loving. Satan, it's all demanding. It's an overlord. It's somebody who's actually a slave master.
Oh, yeah. That would make a difference. Yeah, if a slave calls his master Lord because he's his slave master, but we call God our Lord out of reverence and love, respect.
Right.
And so I often hear that, you know, when people say, don't call God or Jesus Lord because that means Baal. Lord is a title, and Baal is a generic term for Lord, or Lord is a generic term for Baal. But when you say God is my Lord, that's just like God is my God. His name is Yahweh, but we call him God, capital G, because he is our God. That's his title.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Baal and Lord and all that stuff is the same way too.
Right. So in symbolism, as I mentioned, it's a bull, a goat, a ram even, or a half-human mix of one or all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
He's mainly known as a god of fertility, weather, and rain. We're going to look at rain. He's called Rainman, and he also is represented by wind, lightning, seasons, war, and soldiers.
Wow.
So in satanic worship, or even more of the official term for that type of statue and image of Baal is Baphomet. They give the definition right there, actually. Humanoid goat creature, most notable figure in Satanism. This is actually the official logo type for the Church of Satan.
Yeah, the Baphomet, right?
Yeah.
And I see this picture in the top left, and I recognize that from the Rihanna music video.
Exactly.
This is around the time that God really opened my eyes. December 11 is when God just knocked the blinders off my eyes. The scales came off my eyes, stood me up out of my seat, and I could no longer just look at entertainment and music as just like meaningless things. It all had meaning. It all had symbolism. And in this music video, that's the Umbrella music video, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, she's standing in a triangle, and she bends down in this, I've heard, humanly impossible pose, and her arms look like horns, and there's these pits in her shoulders that look like eye sockets, and it literally looks like a demon head, and I don't think that's by accident.
No.
Whether it was CG in post or straight demonic. I think Satan can contort people and make things happen visually on screen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're right. Whether it was one or the other, I know from the dancing background that I come from, I could do all kinds of things when I was under the influence of just letting the music take me and use me.
I could too. People out there don't know your story, but a lot of people have heard my testimony, and when me and my friend would make music, we refused to do it sober. We preferred being high on marijuana, but we would do alcohol if we had it or didn't have weed. But he would play the guitar. I don't play a single instrument. I can program music, but he would play the guitar, and I would just freestyle lyrics. They would just come out of my mouth, and they rhymed, they made sense, and they were most of the time blasphemous, because at that time I idolized Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, Cradle of Filth, and I wanted to be like those people. And I truly believe that demons were working through me, because I can't freestyle anymore. Sometimes I'll feel like I can. I start and I'm like, I can't even rhyme another word. And I believe that when you are messing with that stuff, you're messing with marijuana, which you see Native Americans, they smoke a peace pipe, not for recreational use. They're doing it as a worship ceremony. And when you drink spirits, it's literally called spirits.
Right.
And we live in denial about it. Like, oh, it's not demonic, and try to justify it. As long as I don't get drunk, well, where's the level? Where do you draw the line with drunk? I'm just tipsy or whatever. Anyway, all that to say, so you're talking about, you did hip hop dancing.
I was a hip hop dancer. I got into it heavily in college. One day I'll share that story, but I could get up on stage and do all kinds of moves that I'd never done before. And I don't remember a whole lot of it. I'd actually lose my memory, and it was like I wasn't present at that moment.
Wow.
But then as even just exiting stage and walking down the stairs again, it would come to me. My consciousness would kind of come back to me.
Kind of like waking up from a dream, and it's coming back to you like, oh yeah, I do remember doing that backflip or whatever.
Yeah. And then you're told what you did, like those kinds of things, a backflip, and you're like, oh my goodness. Or some things were not appropriate, I will be honest.
But you were doing things that you didn't even think you could do, right?
That's right.
That's really interesting. So that's the same, I was freestyling. I couldn't do that. I can't do that. You couldn't do a flip or something maybe, but you did it on stage. And so we hear this all the time. Beyonce says, I can't sing like that. But when I lift my hands to the spirit, Sasha Fierce comes into me, and she can be loud and bold and strong, and she can do things that I can't do. Right. She said that.
Yeah.
If we had the clip, we'd play it. But you guys are familiar with the clip. Look it up. Look up Beyonce, Sasha Fierce. Also, I just had another thought. What was it? Anyway, but yeah, she says that when she gets on stage, she does things that she can't do. What I was going to say was, you talked about not being able to remember stuff. Mm-hmm. There are people that's coming out now that people go to these concerts like Taylor Swift, and they can't remember the concert. It says post-concert amnesia, and it's happening at Taylor Swift, and I think the other one was Beyonce. How can you not remember a concert? I've been to many, and I've been to them drunk and high and metal music, all that, and I don't not remember them. So I don't know if it's all music or if there's something different going on right now, but it's pretty interesting. So are we going to look at another slide, or you got more on this one?
We got more to cover real quick. So you're right. That was from the Rihanna music video. There's just the pictures of Baphomet on the right there. And down below is an image of the actual statue that they put up in like government buildings around the world.
Yeah, that was Moloch.
It is. It's Moloch, and they usually have...
But Moloch and Baal are like interchangeable.
They're the same.
Yeah, because sometimes I see the owl, Moloch, at the Bohemian Grove, they worship Moloch, that owl.
Yes.
But it's Baal, because Baal is sometimes an owl too.
Yes. Yeah, so it does take on different forms, different images that represent them. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into it more deeply. I was just going to mention that image we were talking about on the bottom. Usually in other places, it's either like that, where you can see that there's swastikas.
Oh, yeah.
On his hands, his palms.
Wow.
It might not be zoomed in enough for that, but it usually has two children, one male, one female, standing on either side of him near his arms and looking up to him.
Wow. Oh, yeah, you're talking about those Baphomet statues that are popping up.
Yes. Okay. So let's get back to what it says on the slide. I just want to cover it real quick, just in case, for clarity. He's also known as Beelzebub in demonology. Mm-hmm. Of course, Satan, Mahomet, Baphomerius, Samuel Lilith. That's an interesting one. Yeah. Goat of Mendes, sabbatical goat, goat of lust, and Azazel goat.
Azazel, yeah.
So that's interesting. It gives you little tidbits in the names of how dirty and disgusting he is. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so let's kind of dig into what Rainman means here. This is actually definitions from Exposing the Music Industry. If you've not seen that documentary, it's in parts on YouTube.
It's kind of hard to find too. Mm-hmm. If you can't find it on YouTube, go to Rumble or BitChute. That's where, when you're looking at stuff like this, stuff that exposes, the music industry, Hollywood, and the government, conspiracy type stuff. If you can't find it on YouTube, check out Rumble or BitChute.
Right. I encourage people to actually watch those parts 1 through 10. It's really worth it. He explains everything about what's going on and the worship that's really occurring and everything.
He really breaks down point by point symbolism in the music videos. It's really interesting. I mean, like, I remember during the Umbrella video, he was pausing it while he's showing like the water droplets and showing just how detailed these, the post-production are at putting symbols in the moving water. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, to reveal other symbols that he goes through. Mm-hmm. So when rain is used here, when it's used as an individual's name, it actually takes on another meaning all by itself. The name rain means abundant blessings from above. It can be used in various ways to mean someone who offers abundant blessings from above, someone who likes to make it rain, which means throwing money in the air, basically for a stripper or for lust, basically to fulfill lust.
Right.
And someone who can give you any man or woman you desire, someone who can make you rich or famous. That's all that you see in music videos. People are always doing that, but it's a nod to who you're worshiping. When you call yourself a Rainman and you do these gestures, it actually means that you are giving credence, honor, and you're venerating Satan or Baal.
Yeah.
And he blesses you. It seems like the more disgusting and grotesque and the more symbolism and signs you can flash up, like the horns when people do that with their hands,
Yeah.
Satan actually seems to tune in. It's like you're giving away parts of yourself more and more to that deception.
I think it's an invitation. You know, you put idols in your home. That's an invitation. You drink, you mess around with drugs. These are all things that are inviting the enemy into your home, into your life, because Satan has no dominion over us. It's like the whole vampire myth. You know, they can't come into your door until you give them permission, until you invite them in. That's where that all comes from. It's demonology. And so I think there's many different ways that we do it unknowingly, unaware. You know, it could be some dream catcher, So I know of a vacation Bible school type thing that was happening, and they made dream catchers. And I was just like, man, you know, I just saw like 30 of them in the room, and I was just like, man, this is so bad. But they weren't there. I couldn't even talk to anybody about it. It was just, I saw a room where all the kids had made them and they were still in the room. And I was like, man, this is an invitation for Satan to come into your life. These are spiritual things. And so sometimes it could be a dream catcher. It could be some crystal you're wearing. It could be a Buddha statue you got from, you know, TJ Maxx or something. These things have become so culturally acceptable that we just think, oh, it's just decoration, but it's really an idol in your home. And when you look up in the Bible about idols and having an idolatry, the Bible strictly forbids it, and it's a very terrible sin, not because God is full of himself, some narcissist, but because you're inviting demon spirits into your home. You're giving them access. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just really interesting because they use his name. They use the name Rainman to refer to themselves. We'll see a video in just a minute here on that. And it's amazing because, well, again, I got this from Exposing the Music Industry, and they say exactly in there, Rainman is the devil. He is Satan.
Well, yeah, every false god is Satan or demons. I mean, we just read it in the Bible this morning. We were reading in Acts, and Paul said that it was talking about not eating meats offered to idols, or maybe you can eat meats. We were trying to actually discuss that. Like, we were saying at one point it said, you know, don't do these things, abstain from these things, eating meats that were offered to idols, eating meats that were strangled or have blood in them, and avoid fornication and all these things. And then later, though, somewhere else, Paul's saying that these meats offered to idols, they don't have any power in them, so it's okay to eat them, but don't eat them if it's going to make your brother stumble because he's weak in the faith. So that's what we were looking at. That was the context. But in there, it said that the meat offered to idols is worship is offered to demons. It literally says it plain as day in the Bible. So we can, you know, I've always just assumed that and said that idols are literally demons, but the Bible literally says it, spells it out plainly. So there's no, you know, mystery to it.
Right. So one last point there. It's actually a very important one because it can help you start knowing when they're actually identifying themselves or kind of linking themselves to Baal worship. Is using the words, like I said, Rain Man, Rain, Umbrella, Ella, and A. Those are the ones that we know of so far. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide and watch the video.
Okay.
So what's your name gonna be now?
Rainman. Rainman is back with Little Miss Sunshine.
Rainman, 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 Rainman.
Everybody say it's the Rainman, can we have a rainy day and make it rain? I throw up more cash and change the forecast. Your boyfriend is lame, I make it rain on ya.
I'm at the Rolex, I just ran out of money. I need to borrow 50,000 cash.
Make it rain.
Got money, yeah, and you know it, yeah. Take it out your pocket and show it and throw it like just the way, that way.
Took a lick in the mirror, said what's up, what's up.
I was splurging on trips, but when I get my card back activated.
Wow. Yeah, it's so crazy because I think Satan has so many ways of hiding worship to him, and that's where he doesn't play fair. God is knocking on the door of our hearts. He wants us to open the door. He's not tricking us. He's not trying to bash in doors, where Satan is using deception, deceit, trickery, every trick in the book, and he's trying to get into your home like, oh, it's just it's just this or that, like
Right.
it's just a little art statue,
Yeah.
or
It's just fun.
yeah, it's just a little fun, take a little drink or whatever it is. But he disguises everything. He, even in Hollywood, it's like, follow your heart. Oh, it sounds so beautiful, which is really just do what thou wilt, but in the Disney form.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think about, if Baal is the god of rain and prosperity and all these things, what a perfect disguise, Rain Man. Call me the Rain Man because I make it rain. I throw money on women or whatever, and you use it as some like status, but really these people are Satan worshipers.
Yeah.
And so Baal worship is Satan worship.
Mm-hmm. So it's everywhere with that. But if we trace it back to its origins again, if you can go to the next slide, we're going to break this down because, by the way, if you want to know more of the backstory of this, where I explain more about pagan origins and kind of where Nimrod comes from, because he's of the line of Noah, and how that traces back to the flood, and then we go forward from there. Please go ahead and stay tuned. I'm going to be covering pagan origins in an upcoming video, basically, and we'll just help you understand it more.
So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and keep up, because we're going to be coming out with videos all the time. So.
Okay, so we'll just do a little overview really quickly here. So you have the flood. You have Noah with his three sons on the ark and his family, and Satan just has to play with somebody. So he gets into the mind of Ham. Ham seemed to be the perverted one who actually took pleasure in seeing his father naked, insinuating that he liked what he saw. That's disgusting. So you have that perversion within him that seems to grow, and he has a son named Cush, and Cush has a son named Nimrod. And Nimrod is, that many generations away from the promises of God that he would save the people from another flood. He would never flood the earth again. And you would think that they would be, understanding the love of God and how good he is and everything. But instead, he hates God's law. He's tired of keeping the Sabbath, and he's tired of keeping the 10 Commandments and being good. He actually kills his father and marries, this is Nimrod, by the way. He kills his father and he marries his mother, Semiramis. So now you have a mother-wife situation. So the first incest is occurring. Wow. And he is the founder of Baal worship. And we get Babylon. He's the one who set up the Tower of Babel, and then it became known as Babylon. He also went to go set up, he became known as the father of many other towns along with Nineveh. Many of the towns that are against the Lord in the Bible, which again we'll cover in other videos. But he was, again, so against God. He wanted the counterfeit religion. So we have a trinity there. The first trinity that we hear of, because if we really know what we're talking about in the Bible, the word trinity doesn't exist in the Bible. So we have Nimrod as the sun god, or the ruler, the king of Babylon. You have Semiramis as the moon goddess and queen of Babylon, and you have their child that they had named Tammuz. Now, how he was conceived, we will get into that as well. But Babylon, of course, is known as the confusion or the gate of the gods. That's important. I don't know if that rings a bell or that starts making you think, but it should. Because
Wait, what part?
Gate of the Gods.
Gate of the Gods.
Because basically, you only had, excuse me, you only had worship of God, the true God, Yahweh, and then all of a sudden you have Baal worship.
Yeah.
And then it turns into many different things, all these different cultures after that.
Right.
Many different names, many different statues that all come from Baal worship. They're all the same thing.
Yeah. And it all goes to sun worship.
Mm-hmm.
And sun worship is Satan worship.
Yes, and that's a good point, because if you can identify any religion that has, quite honestly, an idol in it, sun worship, serpent worship,
Oh, yeah. Dragon worship.
dragon worship, and did I already say fire?
No, you said sun, but
Okay.
fire.
Fire worship, you have identified Satan at the core.
You know, I think it's interesting that when we talk about Dragon Ball Z and anime and they worship dragons and all these things, and the dragon is the serpent, or the dragon is Satan, and people are like, oh, it's culture. Isn't it interesting that all around the world, the Bible says that dragon, that old serpent, is the devil and Satan. The dragon and the serpent. And we know Baal and the sun and all these things too. But all around the world, we just happen to see cultures that worship the serpent, like the Mayans, the dragon, like the Chinese and the Japanese. I think it's interesting that all around the world, we see serpent worship, dragon worship, sun worship. It's not a coincidence. And people want to just say, oh, it's just culture. Satan has deceived the whole world. That's what it says, that the dragon was cast down and he's going to deceive the entire world. And if you look for it, you can see it plain as day. And it's even in America.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's pretty bold, blatant. You know, we got so many of these artists are just coming out now. They're not even hiding it. You know, they're at the Grammys and they're all wearing devil horns and there's fire everywhere. And yeah, it's really just crazy how Satan doesn't even hide anymore, and people still want to be in denial about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But let's just dive a little deeper into this origin story.
What about the Queen of Heaven there? Did you talk about that?
Not yet. So let's just say that he set up a counterfeit system, that, because if you're going to create a religion, you have to create the steps of the system, right? So he created sacrifice of babies and children to the statue of Baal in fire. The counterfeit, of course, of God having told us he wanted animals to be sacrificed. And then he was the eventual ultimate sacrifice for our sins. He also set up a counterfeit day, which is Sunday. Again, think about it. Sun and day. You're really worshiping the sun. Put in place as a counterfeit day of worship in rebellion against God's Sabbath.
Yep.
So that's why I have up there, it's a birth of Satan's church, because really this is where it all began. It became a big system. So let me get into it a little further. When Nimrod killed his father and married his mother, making her his wife, there was Shem. I don't know if you know Shem. Shem is basically the uncle then of Nimrod, the son of Noah that was faithful along with Japheth. And they're loyal to God. And he actually goes after Nimrod and cuts him down with a sword. And Baal worship was in full swing, but then all of a sudden Nimrod is killed by Shem, and God actually is all for it. Like, it was a just killing.
Yeah.
And all of the people are afraid. So they go into the underground, basically. They take their religions underground, and that becomes the beginning of secret societies.
Oh, wow.
So all secret societies became a thing at that moment.
Yeah.
And then different regions had their own version of it, perhaps, or their different lodge and their different names for their secret
we
societies.
Have Bohemian Grove, and the Bible does talk about those who are in the groves and they're eating the mouse and all this stuff, hiding behind a tree, eating a mouse and all that. I was trying to think if the Bible ever talks about secret societies, but it does talk about the secret chambers.
Yes.
You know, it says if they say coming in the east or in the desert, go not. And it says if he's in the secret chambers. And I'm like, does this mean that Satan impersonating Christ will be among secret societies and stuff?
Possibly.
Yeah.
But when that happens, so Nimrod's no longer alive, Semiramis, his mother and wife, then in some ways she's actually she wants glory for herself. She wants attention. She wants to be known as a queen of Babylon still. So she wants all power to herself. So she actually makes herself a deified queen of Babylon. She pronounces herself. that.
I've just voted myself queen.
Yes. And their son, which is kind of like an illegitimate son, they don't know if she was unfaithful or whatever, but she's pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly. And they have a child, or she does, I guess, at that point, named Tammuz. However, what she does is she takes all these priests and she sets them up. Priests. Just listen to that again.
Yeah.
Okay, not all denominations.
Right.
I know this sounds weird, but...
So Queen of Heaven, already that terminology sounds familiar. And priests.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And she
and
sets up confessionals.
Yeah, oh wow.
And these booths are only for these ordained priests who get you to confess everything to them so that they can go to her and tell you all about each person in the town so that she can use people.
Wow.
She uses fear, extortion, and magic against them. And all of the priests had to be versed in all of that.
Yeah.
Deeply.
Yeah. We still see that in the Catholic Church. We see they call Mary the Queen of Heaven.
There you go.
And so it's like, isn't it interesting if you just looked up the Queen of Heaven in the Bible, you would see that this is a false god.
Yeah.
And then they have the priests, the confessionals, and they use the fear. You know, the Catholic Church is all about using fear and penance. And if you don't pay money, your family members are going to burn and burn and burn in purgatory and all these things. And that's why this country was founded, to flee that persecution. Back in the papacy was ruling the world. They would kill you if you didn't convert. And so the people that founded this country were fleeing persecution and came to a land where there was freedom of religion. It's not a Christian nation. Maybe some of the people were Christian, but George Washington was a Freemason. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's true. And this country was founded on freedom of worship. You can worship whoever, however you want, without facing, a death decree or being burnt at the stake. And so we see that there is going to be a swing towards forced worship again. That's what the Bible says in Revelation, that it's going to come a time where they will force worship with the death decree. And a lot of people think it's going to be that there's going to be like some one-man antichrist that just hates Christianity, is going to be killing Christians everywhere. But it's going to be a lot more deceptive than that. A lot of Christians are going to fall into this trap because it's going to look like peace and safety. And it says when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. It's going to look like unity and love and coexist. And we can all agree on, something, on love or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you stand on thus saith the Lord, and this is what the commandments say, and this is what God says in his word, you will be public enemy number one. You're the problem. You're the reason there's so much hatred and intolerance and all these things, that these terms that are going around now, hate speech, intolerance, these are all, I don't think that people know it. As Satan is working behind the scenes, he's like, okay, this group, I'm going to get them to work on intolerance. This group, I'm going to get them. And he's working with all these different groups to create these laws against hate speech and intolerance and all these things, so that when this one world system is set up, you cannot speak the truth. You can't stand on truth, because now if you say this lifestyle is a sin, well, you could be locked up for that.
There you go.
You don't accept people.
Well, that's what I just began with, right? I said we always have to be tolerant and, I don't know, civilized in the way we say things. That it's basically curtailing everything we say. Yeah. So that we're never actually telling the truth. And even if we are, it's just, that was bad or that was evil.
Yeah.
And that's it. But sorry, I think we're getting off track a little bit. So the other point to make is that she even told all of her priests, she laid it right out there, that the ideology was that they were the only way to actually connect you with God, to mediate for you. And of course, as we know, that mediation didn't even happen with them. It actually happened with Mary in their system.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they had to take secret oaths. They had to be in magic and deception and everything else. And like you said, she was known as the Queen of Heaven. Even to this day in the Catholic Church, she is. And the Bible has a lot to say about the Queen of Heaven.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
It says they offer up cakes to her and everything, and we see that happening too.
We can cover that. That will be covered in detail.
Okay.
That's one of our holidays, by the way. A little taste of that and whet your appetite.
Wow.
So when people went into hiding, these Baal worship people and the priests, they all fled to the island of Alexandria, and they did not leave behind their religion. They actually honed their skills in every evil, disgusting, satanic, occult thing.
The Isle of Alexandria. Who are these people?
These are the secret societies and all the people who practiced Baal worship at that time. They were afraid, just like Nimrod, that Shem and other Bible-believing Christians or God's people would come and slaughter them all.
Wow.
So they all fled there. And when they did, they got to live there for several years. And they actually made, if you go to the next slide, they actually made this whole Library of Alexandria that holds all the occult books.
Oh, wow.
Now, it did burn down eventually.
Wow.
But a lot of those books are still some of the books that certain secret societies hand down to generations.
I bet.
To learn how to do things, that's where they're always trying to get you back to, is the height of the knowledge of that day where everything was almost in fulfillment.
The knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
God was never keeping us from knowledge. He just didn't want us to have the knowledge of evil, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. Why should we have knowledge of rape and murder and all these things?
Mm-hmm. All right. So, as I said, it was in full swing. We got to see it. Now we're going to actually look at it as it spread across the world. In Egypt, Semiramis became known as Isis, the Queen of Heaven. And Nimrod became known as Osiris, the husband's son, and frequently is called Horus, the sun god. In Phoenicia, Semiramis and Tammuz were worshipped as or known as Ashtoreth and Tammuz. In Greece, Aphrodite and Eros. In Rome, Venus and Cupid. And in China, Mother Xingmu and her child. We always see this, and those are only a few examples. It goes across. I'll show you a picture of all the different names of gods, and it's not extensive. There's many more that I forgot or don't know about even sometimes, or whatever it is. It's a pretty good list, but there's always a consort, and we need to know what that word means. Consort means a wife, husband, or companion, in particular the spouse of a reigning monarch at that time.
Oh, wow.
So why is that? Because, again, they want to have that trinity going on. You have the male god version of that god, which, of course, in Baal worship is Nimrod. You have the female counterpart, which in this case is Semiramis, and you have a child. There's always a child related to this.
Yeah.
So that kind of covers that slide. Next, this is this list that I have made. As we saw, this is the confusion where everything got confused because people are now coming from all different parts of the world, even today, even in their time, going, well, we worship Isis in this one town, and, well, we worship this one god named Rihanna or Inanna in our town, and she might look a little different, but we do the same things. Isn't that strange? I think she might be the same.
Yeah, right.
Well, today is the same thing, too. You can actually trace back different symbols, different looks of the idol even, and different rituals that are all bound together.
Yeah.
So here's a list. I hope that's helpful to you guys. Again, I've already delineated that Nimrod was the sun god in this picture. Semiramis was the moon goddess. And their child Tammuz was Tammuz, really, but is associated with the stars sometimes.
I see Pan on there. It's interesting because if you look up Pan, he's a Greek god with goat legs and horns, and he plays the pan flute pipes.
Yes.
And this is, another example of when Disney puts out these disgusting things and sugarcoats them and makes them kid friendly, where you have a boy named Peter Pan that flies up to Wendy's window and says, you know, imagine your daughter's upstairs asleep, your young daughter, maybe preteen, maybe barely a teen.
Yeah.
And some teenage boy flies up to her window and says, come with me, Wendy. I want to take you to where the lost boys are. And there's no parents and no rules. And the only thing is you can never come back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is Pan, the Pied Piper, you know, all these stories are so dark. And a lot of people are aware of this now, that these nursery rhymes and all these things have these dark origins.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would you take a god like Pan, who is a sexual deviant, the god of rape and all these things, and turn him into a beloved character on Disney?
Well, I will add to that, to put it in full, kind of to burst the bubble, any mystery behind that. He's not only a rapist, but a pedophile. So that's really what he's known for, is doing that to everybody he comes across. Adult, child, and whatever.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like Never Never Land.
You never go back because your innocence has been taken from you, I think.
Michael Jackson lived in Never Never Land. He had that theme park and everything.
Yeah. So this is really what it looked like throughout history. Different variations of different chambers. Of course, the middle one showing multiple chambers within one, more as a bullhead.
That is it's a furnace, right?
It is. It is a furnace.
And this would be where people would offer up their children.
Yes, mainly babies. But the chambers usually are big enough to accommodate a full-size human. There's another depiction right below it that actually shows the off-ramp of a baby in the black and white photo there.
That's the one where you see it's like a bronze statue that's got fire, and I hear that the hands would just be glowing red hot, and they'd set the babies on there to just be tortured to death.
Yes, and I'll be honest, I get my research not just from Christian websites, but this is actually from a Satanist website, and that image, there was a woman who had come out of Satan worship, and she actually said, not that they had the statue and they had everything, but they actually did this ritual, and she just remembers the screams. And I could understand that. That's a terrible thing to think about, and the horror of that. But they used to play such loud tambourines and drums and everything off to the side for that very reason, so that you wouldn't be, your emotions wouldn't rise up and actually have sympathy and care.
I hear that's kind of the origin of the drums, where they come from, the skin that was stretched over the bongo or whatever. I don't think any instrument is inherently evil. I think it's all about how you play it. It's just like anything. A knife is not evil if you're cutting vegetables with it, but it can be used to sacrifice your son or something.
Right. So we'll just move along a little quicker here. The next one
Go back
to. Yeah. So we still have the one I mentioned where the two kids are standing there looking up at the goat head guy on the far left. Again, that's what governments are using, certain governments. He's also the fertility god with that harvesting tool in his hand, the green man, and just the bull, I guess.
At the top right.
At the top right, yeah. It's depicted there. But anal sex is one of the key forms of worship to Baal. Wow. He's also known at the very top, you can see, as Balaam, and Balaam with an H. So it's mainly it was known between male and male worshipers to have this intercourse like that.
Yeah. It's really the only way. You could do it with a female.
You can, but yeah, it was mainly known between males and males. And it was offered up as a sacrifice to the goddess, basically. It meaning the waste,
act.
The act and the poop that came out. Wow. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
So yeah, Satan loves to pervert everything that God's created. God created sex. It's a beautiful thing that a married couple can experience, and you're only supposed to experience it with one person in your whole life. Many of us have not done it that way, unfortunately, but imagine if we did it God's way. One man, one woman, that's the only one you'll ever be with, and you get to experience this amazing thing with just that one person. You've never experienced it with anybody else in your life. If we did it that way, you'd never have any comparing or any of that stuff. And Satan comes along, and it has a purpose. For one, there's pleasure and bonding and all that stuff, but it does create life. And so Satan comes along and says, oh, this thing that God made, I'm going to completely pervert it to where you're going in a hole that waste is supposed to come out of. It's completely unsanitary, causes disease, infection, all these things. And he turns it into this ritual practice for him. So, God says the marriage bed is undefiled, and he created it's this beautiful thing that he made, a gift. Now Satan says this act is for me.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
it's a circle of life that God gave us. It's beautiful, like you're saying, it's supposed to be. And Satan goes, extra flesh. Now it's a circle of death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like he's just perverting every single thing.
And it's amazing that this is yet another thing that we accept as a culture, that this is just a lifestyle. You're born this way. You can't help it. It's beautiful. It's love, whatever. And really, it's just glorifying and accepting satanic worship, a satanic ritual.
So they actually had temple prostitution between, you could choose a male, you could choose a female, you could choose a cross-dressing prostitute as well. And sex with, especially anal sex, was very glorifying to Baal in those prostitution brothels. And I just want to bring to attention that it's actually mentioned that even after years and years, that in Leviticus it's mentioned here.
Well, you have a verse on
The
it?
Apostle Paul, references this pagan worship in Romans. There it is, Romans 1:26 through 27, when he actually tears apart the same kind of fertility goddess worship.
Wow. Yeah, man, the Bible has answers for everything. It's amazing how it's so applicable to our day to day when you really get into it and read.
So we can go to the next slide now. And as you can probably put together in your own minds, the LGBTQ plus whatevers and everything, quite honestly, that falls beneath that started at Baal worship.
Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun. The Bible, the Old Testament, forbids homosexuality. So it's nothing new. Sodom and Gomorrah was way back. That's in Genesis.
Yeah.
The first book of the Bible talks about homosexuality, and we see where that led to.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, this honors Baal, Queen of Heaven. It also became known as, and this is where I want to get into this, she became known as Ashtoreth, Ashira, Astarte, Inanna, and Ishtar. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
Then in Mesopotamian nature, the ideal pagan priests pertaining to being LGBTQ is actually both male and female or androgynous. I will be covering actually the whole topic of LGBTQ later in an upcoming video as well. It's my androgyny video. So stay tuned for that. I explain it a lot more and the spiritual applications to being involved in a lifestyle like that.
Yeah.
The god Anut, which is also Mesopotamian, she had all androgynous priests. Then there's Cybele, Rhea, and they all refused to be one gender. They would they would be gender neutral.
Yeah.
Always.
Wow. So non-binary, fluid, all these things. Anything but what you were born as.
Yes. And yeah, as you said, it says it right there, but possess character and physical attributes of both.
Wow.
And they would even mutate themselves to do that.
Wow.
Yes. So this is nothing new. Nothing new at all. I just want to make a huge point of this because I mentioned it one time there that in Mesopotamia, the priests were said to need to be androgynous, but in Wicca and the occult and Satanism, the highest level of witchcraft that you can obtain, like to commune with Satan and the demons more fluidly again, is androgyny.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that more people don't see this. When you go to these parades, the LGBTQ festivals or whatever, you will see them mocking Christ.
Yeah.
You will see them wearing rainbow devil horns. You'll see the Satanic church there with pentagrams that are rainbows, and it goes vice versa. When you go to the Satanic parades, you'll see the same thing. You'll see so much homosexuality. There's so many rainbows because Satanism and that lifestyle, the LGBTQ lifestyle, go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It is a satanic practice. It's not just an alternate lifestyle and, well, it's a little different than it is satanic. Let's just be blatantly honest. That's exactly what it is. We saw literally where this stuff came from, that this is a ritual, satanic ritual. And to me, it's just so clear. I see when I did a video on the show Owl House, a Disney Owl House. This was before the main character came out as bisexual, by the way. I was just talking about how the producer or the creator of the show said her pitch to Disney was, girl hangs out with witch in hell. That was her pitch, and Disney's like, awesome, let's do it. And so you literally have the whole environment is hell, and a teenage girl hanging out with a witch later becomes bisexual. Why? Why is witchcraft and bisexual? And so I remember when we released that on Little Light Studios, we got flooded with comments of different people saying, be gay, do witchcraft, be gay, do witchcraft, be gay. Why? Why those two things hand in hand? Because they are hand in hand.
Exactly. And I'm going to uncover why. That's again, I'm going to show you why.
Awesome.
In my androgyny presentation later.
Awesome.
So, that's the point. I've covered all that. Yeah. We can go to the next one. So this is Inanna.
Ooh, them hips don't lie.
Yeah. Who does that look like today?
Kardashians.
Yeah. So that was supposed to be the most beautiful. And of course, she's grabbing her own chest because she's supposed to be the mother of many nations and have many, like, fertility. And
I've seen some of these images where the woman has mini breasts, like an animal.
Yes, we're going to look at that too.
Okay.
She's usually known under a different name then. It morphs to a different name. This one with Inanna is mostly seen with owls. So you got her
Bohemian Grove.
Yep, you got her with owls, with owl feet, with the kind of ankh in her hands.
Yep.
So that's the connection there. Next slide.
I see the sun.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, right.
Yes,
here
right
in the
there.
top
Okay,
corner.
that's right. For the seal of Inanna. Yeah, that is the actual seal of Inanna in the middle. Now as it morphs to Cybele, like you said, many breasts is Kali. She's not the only one.
Is that image here? It's kind of small. Is that it?
No, it's right here.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah.
Clearly, yeah.
So they don't usually show Kali like that. Or with the cornucopia, by the way.
Is Kali sometimes a male, too?
No.
Okay. I was thinking this was the Hindu god that's like stomping on the children and all that.
She's technically an assassin who does do many of those grotesque things, but she's always female.
Okay.
So it's not the male one.
Gotcha.
There's another one, I forget what his name is, but he has his own stuff, his own name.
If you guys haven't ever watched a Walter Veith video, man, he's so deep. But I remember him talking about this hat that this guy has on. This weird Smurf hat. The Smurfs wear it. They're also blue like this, but
it's a Phrygian cap.
Oh, you know about that? Okay,
Yeah.
I can never remember what it's called, but I've seen it on a seal.
Yeah.
An army seal, like a circle.
Do you know why though?
Hat.
I'm
No.
sorry, I'm gonna pop this mystery right here.
Cool.
Because that was the hat that the Masons wore.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That was part of your initiation, and part of the way that they could tell each other from the rest was the Phrygian cap.
Wow. If you looked like a Smurf, you were a Freemason.
Yeah. So when, again, similar hats are being worn by the dwarfs in Snow White and somewhat of a variation with Peter Pan as well with some of their caps.
Yeah.
That's a nod to the Masons.
Interesting.
So Cybele is known with lions. You get to see her with lions. And the sun went in the middle, seal again. What is the most important part about this? That's actually the tiny little man with the beard.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually one of her priests that are androgynous, wearing a dress and having a beard.
Wow. Yeah.
So is the guy with the Phrygian cap on, actually. Sorry, there you go. You have
it's confusion,
slip.
Babylon.
There you go. Yeah, he is a priest to Cybele.
Can you not see that this is our society today?
Right.
Like, literally, like, he, she, what, I don't want to misgender you. You have a beard, you're wearing a dress. I don't know.
Right.
This is Babylon. You know, the Bible says that we're going to go back to the days of Babylon. You know, Revelation is written in symbols, and it describes God's people as Israel and the rest of the world as Babylon. And Babylon means confusion.
Right.
And man, if we're not in confusion today when people don't even know what gender they are anymore, it is a confusing world.
Yes. So that's her anyway. And by the way, just to mention, the Madonna statue. Madonna is another name, by the way, just like Cybele, Ashtoreth, Semiramis. It's all a name of the female counterpart or wife of Nimrod, which is for Baal worship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when you see the other woman who has tons of breasts on her, usually it's a Madonna statue. They have black ones and they have white ones.
Right. I've seen the Black Madonna.
Yeah. So next slide. So this is an interesting point, a hugely interesting point, because in Cybele worship, again, that's a male priest that looks like a woman, kind of. There's a halo on her, which feels him. Sorry,
yeah,
I don't know.
It? It looks like a masculine face, but feminine body. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it?
And they were known as goddesses. Cybele, I'm sorry, is the goddess of thresholds, transitions,
Interesting.
and street raves.
Street raves.
She's hugely known for the street raves.
Yeah, we think that raving is something new and like, oh man, I love to party and I'm hip. But
my parents didn't know about that.
Something. But it's like, dude, you look at. I have these giant books. They're like this big, this thick, of art from Michelangelo and stuff, and you see like these people dancing in the streets naked, and it's all in Greek mythology and all that too. So it's nothing new. Dance parties with nakedness and drunkenness and in the streets like Mardi Gras. Let me throw you some beads and show me some skin, and we're in the middle of the street.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, again, why would nakedness be showing itself so many times in so-called art throughout the ages? Because of pagan worship.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yeah.
So let's see. What is the next slide? So this is where it comes full circle. We actually have people today. This is an actual advertisement I found several months back that says, "We are an ancient people. The queer spirit.
Oh my goodness.
Because we live between male and female, matter and spirit, the living and the dead."
Queerspirit.net.
Yep. And because we come from all other peoples, we were and are honored in many cultures for our capacity to link, connect, and unify. We have been called gatekeepers and bridge builders. We are the walk between people, a natural healing and peacekeeping force in the world. So bringing up another element of the spiritual powers which you will have, or it usually is accompanied by being queer or LGBT or whatever, is they're usually known as healers.
That's really interesting too. Not too many years back, but maybe the early 2000s, mid 2000s, or 2009 or whatever. There was a lot more like atheist. Atheist was cool to be an atheist, and people were not like just gay like they are, like it wasn't made trendy like it is now. I still don't think that the numbers are inflated like they act like. If you judged how many homosexuals are in the world by watching Hollywood, you would think 30% of the population is a homosexual. It's not anything like that. It might be 6%, and that's all young people. But also more and more people are becoming spiritual.
Right.
Less of them are atheist. Now they're spiritual,
Yeah.
and it's usually New Age or Wicca or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you have homosexuality rising and these false systems of worship, New Age and Wicca. And what I'm getting at is this whole being gay is magic. There's some kind of magic in it.
There you go.
Yeah.
You should just leave it there because that's like an entire teaser to my androgyny video. So yeah, I'll be walking you through all of that all throughout history. So here's the Ashira poles or Astarte or Ashtoreth poles. It's all mentioned in the Bible as the same things. They're just different variations in different countries. So you would see them sometimes as just poles like you see in the center there that are kind of engraved with different patterns. You would actually have different busts of the people, of course, which means, from the chest up, of carvings of them. You have, unfortunately, like the man is hewing out an entire wood carving. That's pretty much a sex doll in the groves.
Oh my goodness.
And you would, of course, you could use all these. They're free sex dolls in the groves and in the woods for their practices. And when you get down below, you get to the point where the trees. This is I've
seen this before. This is the Anunnaki, right?
Anunnaki Merry Tree.
Wow.
Yes. So we just say Merry Christmas. It was Merry Tree.
Merry Tree.
There you have the actual Christmas tree with little elves climbing up it.
Looks identical to this.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it's designed.
So that's a little taste of the holiday presentations I will be giving.
Who's monarch butterflies up here?
Yes.
Interesting. Is that a beetle? What is that?
That is a beetle. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
For that.
You just blew my mind though. Merry Christmas, Merry Tree goes back to the Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I will be covering that as well.
Because why do we even say Merry Christmas? We don't say, we say Happy Halloween, Happy Easter. Why do you say Merry?
Right.
It has to have an origin. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's that. And of course, I brought it all the way to today with a lit tree there with presents underneath it. So next slide.
So I just want to touch a little bit on this too, because why do we have a tree? Why do we cut down a tree, bring it into our home, decorate it with lights? I've seen a lot of different, speculation. Some of it might be speculation. I do believe that this goes back to sun worship again, because the evergreen tree, it never died. It's green all year round. Yeah. And so they looked at this tree as a symbol that the sun would come back. Because during the wintertime, people got scared. Is it going to get colder and colder and colder and the sun's never going to come back? Right. But the evergreen was a symbol, a promise, basically, that their sun god would return back because it always stayed green.
Yes.
And so now we bring this in during the specific time of the year, which I believe is pagan too, and we put offerings under it.
Yes.
These presents are offerings.
Not to mention the decorating, which has so much more. He is mentioning just a few things. I am going to be unpacking that. There's so much more to this.
Awesome.
In the holiday presentations, I didn't, this is the long-awaited holiday presentations that were never...
You never got to do them yet.
I never got to do them when I was with Little Light. So tune in for that, please.
So I've heard another cool speculation that, there's a angel on top and there's this garland serpent around the tree with red things hanging from the tree. It's like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the serpent tempting you, the angel that was guarding the tree. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not sure if that stuff's speculation. I do believe what's not speculation is the evergreen tree is a symbol of a promise that the sun god would return.
Yes.
And that, that winter would end and all those things.
So I'm bringing it full circle again. These are just to prove many things here. You have the middle picture up top, very high, highest picture, and with the Anunnaki tree again. You have to the right the Egyptian tree. The far top left is I think Canaanite. Down below is Babylonian. Again, an Egyptian one in the middle. And down
Anunnaki.
below, I forget which one that one is, but it's rather grotesque. All of a sudden, it's like there's, I don't know if those are lions or beasts or even demons alongside the tree. So I was just trying to prove that it's showcasing itself in many different cultures.
This goes
from
back
many.
all through history.
Yes.
Nothing new.
Yes. And today, there's a little history on this. In the Ashira pole was actually seen as a mound like this, which is more right in your face, an image of the male genitalia.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw that with some of the other poles back here too. This looks very male. Genital.
Yeah. We'll see it even in more application as we go forward. But that's what the I'm sorry, what is the word for obelisk? That's what the obelisk is truly. And it was in India. They still have this. It's actually a little idol you can get on your altar for the home altars. You can actually get a tiny lingam, I think is what it's called. It had the name on the.
And what is a lingam?
It's just like that. It's a mound of the actual phallic phallus.
And so people in India have this on their desk?
Well, in India and the Indians who come to the United States, if they worship this, they will actually pour milk over it, which signifies fertility, the ejaculation.
Yeah.
Which they're trying to receive from the god. They're trying to have fertility and abundance. Again, that's Baal, Rainman, whatever.
Yeah.
There you go.
Prosperity.
Yes. And you can read the rest of that, but it also had shrine prostitution, which is really what you do at that. These mounds, whatever they're called, whatever they look like, are always for prostitution and orgies. That's a place to do that. So next slide. This is what it looked like in Egypt.
When you said something,
Ashira pole.
Ashira, I was
Ashtoreth.
thinking of this. Is that what that's called?
That's a maypole.
Maypole, okay.
And we
that's
have
what
that.
came to mind.
Yes. So someone made a comment actually about it still being in Europe. Yes, they do. In England and in Europe, in some places, they definitely have maypole celebrations in which the public can join in, mostly put on by a lot of these occult or Satanist groups or solstice keepers and such.
And it just always looks fun. I always see kids doing it. But what is the significance? Is there like choose your partner when you get to the base of the pole or something?
Actually, it's more grotesque than that because every time your ribbon overlaps with another person, they're your next partner.
Oh my
and it just keeps going on and on and on. You just keep until the pole is filled with the ribbon. And a little tiny flash of this would be what we have on Easter morning. They would wait until the sun hits over the hills of a mountain or a hill, and they would have the sun rays hit their bodies in a frenzy to capture this fertility from the gods. They would get to it like rabbits. They would just have the pole and everything, and that's why rabbits were
like
everywhere.
The sun was blessing them, and they had to do it in front of the sun god.
Yes.
Yeah, and exactly. Rabbits and eggs are all about fertility.
There's another reason for the rabbit and the eggs too, but I again will explain that in my holiday presentation.
Isn't that interesting? Playboy uses the rabbit logo.
Yeah. So we can go to the next one. Again, on this topic, especially referring to Ashira, Astarte, and Ashtoreth. The Bible has so much to say about this. I just mentioned these ones because it was hard-hitting and much more clear. But it says in Isaiah 57, verse 5, "You who burn with lust among the oaks." Again, it was among hills and groves, trees,
right, in the woods,
wooded areas, under every green tree. You said the evergreen.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Who slaughter your children in the valleys, under the clefts of the rocks. Then I had the same verse in a different version, for the King James Version, and I want you to hear its depth. Inflaming yourselves with idols. Inflaming actually seems to, in my mind, ring true of, again, this orgasm, right?
Right.
This orgy that's coming. inflaming yourselves with idols under every green tree, slaying the children in the valleys under the clefts of the rocks. Then in Jeremiah 2 verse 20, we have here that it says, long ago you broke off your yoke and tore off your bonds. You said, I will not serve you. Indeed, on every high hill and under every spreading tree, you laid down as a prostitute.
Wow. A lot about trees.
A lot about trees. And tree worship, and that's another thing I would like to connect right now, is tree worship goes along with this.
Tree worship.
A lot of the time you have, like the Druids, I will be showing this in just a moment, they're known as, they worship oaks.
Wow.
Wiccans, when certain holidays come around, they will actually put, whether it's the holly berry or a evergreen tree or a pine tree, you know what I mean? They have different trees for different uses actually during the year to sacrifice or give to their gods. They'll make
their wand out of different types of wood.
Exactly.
Like the holly
for
wood.
Different reasons, different things you're trying to conjure up or do.
I wonder where that word Hollywood comes from. We say it so like Hollywood, I think of stars and glitz and glamour, but it's the witch's wand made out of Hollywood is to lull people to sleep, because the holly berries are known to make you fall asleep. And so Hollywood is just lulling its spell over humanity as it broadcasts, casting a spell broadly, right?
Yeah.
You have the Broadway on Broadway, and it's like, but Jesus says, take the narrow way, not the broad way. The broad way leads to destruction.
Yeah.
You got Sin City. All these things are like right in our face when it comes to like big cities and stuff. And it's all this stuff's talked about in the Bible.
Yes. So that's what that slide was showing. Now we're going to cover and make another connection here, actually, because in Ezekiel 8, verse 17, it says, Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Is it a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here? For they have filled the land with violence and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to the nose, which sounds weird, but again, it's a branch, it's a tree, you know. To the nose, what do they mean? We're going to find out. Go one verse after that, and it says, Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them. So he's so angry. This is one of the things he hates the most. Yeah. And then I went to the commentaries. I wanted to know what the branch thing meant. Okay. And he says the branch he mentions is probably an Ashira, a tree or a wooden pole that stood for the fertility goddess. Wow. It was essentially a phallic symbol. Yeah. God says that their wickedness was the same as sticking that idol right in his nose, right in his face.
Wow. I wonder if that's kind of like where this comes from. Because it's like a branch, you know, and you're sticking it to your nose.
Huh, that's
I bet that's like the origin of that
connection. I never thought of that, but yeah. Okay, so here's the whole Druid thing. Julius Caesar is the best known source of information about the Druids. Here again, I did not get this from a Christian site. This was a very raw occultist. Yeah.
The raw gist. So it's not a Christian site.
No. And it says, this comes from the Encyclopedia Britannica, this quote. Under Druids, it clearly explains who they were. Druids, the learned class among the ancient Celts, whose name means knowing or finding the oak tree. So when you know somebody as well, in the Bible, you have had...
Yeah, sexual relations with them.
Right. So this is interesting.
Knew his wife.
Yes. And I believe that that's what they're referring to. Yeah. They seem to have frequented oak forests and acted as priests, teachers, and judges. The earliest known records of the Druids come from the 3rd century BC. Druids took charge of the public and private sacrifices, and many young men went to them for instruction. They judged all public and private quarrels and decreed the penalties. The Druids' principal doctrine was that the soul was immortal. They offered human victims for those who were gravely sick or in danger of death in battle. Huge wicker work images were filled with living men and then burned. Although the Druids chose criminals by preference, they sacrificed innocent victims if necessary.
This is talking about Burning Man. Did you put that in here?
I did.
Okay. I don't want to
No,
jump the gun.
You were supposed to make that connection.
Yeah, it's talking about the wicker, a wicker work image of a man. I thought it said that anyway.
Yes, it did. It did.
And burning it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to show that next?
No, I actually don't have that image, but I was wanting someone to make that connection.
Yeah,
so good.
That's exactly what I connected So it says huge wickerwork images. That's images like statue. So a huge statue made out of wicker were filled with living men. You put them inside that man and then burned. And now people do that at raves. Connection again, raves, Rainman, wicker, druids, all these things.
But yeah, this is really, I will be having other more hard-hitting probably videos. I've not made them or preconceived of them yet, but we will be talking more about satanic rituals and witchcraft, and even police coming across reports of how they can tell that it was satanic rituals and stuff. And this is one of the ways that you know.
The world thinks that Satanism and satanic rituals and stuff, like, it never happens anymore, but cops see it all the time. And some of these cops are involved in these secret societies, so they don't talk about it, or they say
they don't report it.
They don't report it in that manner. It's like, oh, it's gang violence or whatever. Isn't it interesting that gangs go hand in hand with Satanism too? Just look up gang graffiti. Look it up. Go to Google search, image search, gang graffiti, and you will see pitchforks. You'll see 666. You'll see hexagrams, pentagrams, and it's just crazy that people aren't making the connection that the gangs are satanic. But and they're all about murder, because Satan's all about murder. But yeah, police, they know that there's satanic rituals going on, satanic sacrifices going on, but it doesn't get reported.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a big cover-up to make Satanism look like it's not alive and well today, but it is.
We hear about, witches' covens and their rituals of, like we just read, taking innocent victims to do that with.
Yeah.
So the god Anut, or maybe Nut or just Nut, I don't know, was both an Egyptian and Sumerian Canaanite religions. And it's just kind of a weird goddess, but she's mostly depicted in nude human form, sometimes with the form of a cow. Again, cow Baal worship. Okay.
Yeah, bull.
Whose great body formed the sky and heavens, a sycamore tree. There we go, another tree.
Yeah.
Or as a giant sow, so a pig suckling many piglets, representing the stars. Pot on the head, representing a uterus. So it's always a fertility thing.
Pothead.
Yeah.
Wow, I used to be a pothead. Crazy.
All right. So next slide.
I mean, maybe there is a connection with marijuana being called pot.
I don't know. But here's where we may not burn children openly, or we not see people do that, but killing of, unfortunately, babies and children is still happening. Today, it's called abortion.
Yeah, and it happens as late as birth, from what I hear. I have not kept up with the politics of it, but I asked somebody, what is the latest term that you can have an abortion? And somebody said, basically, birth, up to birth.
Yeah, I heard that recently too, and it was really disturbing. So in Baal worship, Chemosh worship, again, these are all different names of the same thing. It's all Baal worship. Baal became known as Chemosh with the, where was Esther from? I'm sorry.
I don't remember. Queen Esther?
No, sorry, Ruth. Ruth. Man, I don't know where that is, but that's anyway where they called Baal worship Chemosh. He's also known as Moloch or Marduk. So keep that in mind as well.
Oh, I've heard Marduk too.
So yes, instead of burning the children, now we have abortion methods. And that is how we do it all today.
Yeah. It's just, You know, you go to a clinic and there's people wearing lab coats, and it's all good. You know, you even pay to have it done.
And it's so clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Again,
they never do show you the aborted fetus, the
Right.
quote unquote clump of cells. You know, I've had people tell me it's a clump of cells. I've seen what comes out. There's fingernails, there's eyelashes, there's a beating heart, and they've done studies to prove that a baby that young, its nerves are so sensitive that they feel feelings 10 times more than humans or grown adults.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, it's not even a human, it's a fish, and it's got gills, and it's a clump of cells, all these things. It's willful ignorance. You can look it up. You can look at the bodies of the babies. And this is happening today. People are paying to have it done. The government's paying for it. You know, you can get a government-funded abortion, a government-funded sacrifice, if you will. Yeah. And it's happening in our world, and it's disgusting.
Right. It's, yeah. So, yeah, then there's the pedophilia and sex trafficking, child sex trafficking specifically, that goes along with this. I'm just going to make very, general associations. But
I want to get this video flagged or taken down or something.
Yeah. But you can go watch a certain documentary that's called Out of Shadows. And there's also...
Fun fact here, you cannot send that link to somebody in Messenger. I've tried to send that link, I won't even say the word again, but those 3 words, .org, if you try to send that to somebody on Messenger, it will not go through. You'll get an error message. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Quiet on set? Okay, so there's another one that talks about this. But pedophilia was actually associated with the worship of Baal, Marduk, Moloch, and Chemosh again. It is actually a known fact. I didn't make any of this up. This is all me. In fact, every slide is all quotes from people's websites. This is all from whether it's Satanist websites, occult websites, pagans themselves who actually say this is what we do, or other Christians that are exposing this,
doing the research,
which really aren't many. That's why, again, we're talking about this, because really Christians don't know a whole lot of why. They might know one reason and they're like, oh, that's it, but they don't know the depth of each thing. Has so many more reasons why it's done in paganism and why it glorifies Satan, that we need to know those too. Like, it really starts convicting you when you really know that. So if we go back to that, in yoga is actually many different, and I'll prove this later. We have a few slides next that actually is all about sex positions. Yeah. That's really what you're practicing for.
Worshiping
the sun.
Gods, the sun salutation. You look up a chart of the names of these poses, and they are like the sun salutation, and then like you're talking about the dog position, all these things.
Yes. So the elites, Rothschilds, and others, mainly in all of them really, but in banking especially, from this website, was included that they take part. And so there's child sex trafficking, of course, which is blood sacrifice children. Blood sacrifice of children. Lots of blood was needed, it's said, by another pagan source and Satanist source, that is because they need to open this portal of different dimension, which CERN is, the Ark of Baal, erected all over the world in many different places to Moloch, to Marduk.
Different gods, like CERN has Shiva, the destroyer, and these guys that work there are doing all these weird dances around it and stuff. Why is there this like false idol worship at this place where there's technology to open up a portal? Yeah. They say it's the atom smasher. Yeah. But what they say they're trying to reverse engineer the Big Bang. They want to, basically what this thing is doing, it's a mile-long tunnel, and it's a magnetic force field, and it slows down particles to like stop them, and then uses magnets to smash them together. And it's what do they call it? Atom smasher, proton accelerator, something like that. And they're literally as they smash these things together unnaturally, things are happening, weird things. But atoms are bursting open into new things. But there's always these claims of people that are around there. I remember hearing that they had some dark matter and they were storing it at some college campus. And people were saying that they were having night terrors and supernatural things were happening. And
I'm sorry. I started laughing because Star Trek has the movie.
Some predictive programming.
It has dark matter in it.
Wow.
And it turns back time.
Oh, interesting.
So that's kind of what they're trying to do, or a dimension in time they're trying to jump into and all this stuff. About. But anyway.
All right.
Sorry. So they're hoping that this god, Marduk or Moloch, will come back and into this new dimension through the portal and take rulership. That's really what they're looking for. And that's what I was told by the website.
That's what Doctor Strange is about too.
Yes.
The Doctor Strange movie. Doctor Strange is Satan. If you don't know that, every element of him, he's the black magician, the great sorcerer, all these things. He lives up in the sanctum sanctorum, sanctuary. And you look it up, that's the most holy place. And that's what Satan said. I want to be above the heights of the cloud. And when you see him in that place, there's a harp, a big harp. Of all the instruments that Doctor Strange could have, there's a harp, which is associated with angels. And the whole storyline is about him having this nightmare of a stairway to heaven. And he's in a desolate place with bones everywhere and broken down cities. This is explained in Jeremiah 4:23-26, when God's fierce anger is going to destroy the world and Satan's going to be bound to this desolate earth for 1,000 years. And this is what Doctor Strange, Satan, Doctor Strange, same person. This is what his dream, his nightmare is about, this recurring nightmare. And in that movie, it's all about the multiverse and CERN. And it's not a stretch. I read about it. They said that it was CERN. They even have the false god there and everything. And so I've never seen the movies. I don't know any of the details, but the multiverse is the spirit realm. When you look it up on the fandom, it says that it's another dimension where there's this multiversal war going on. And He Who Remains is the name. He Who Remains is the one who ends that multiversal war. So it really is. It's a spiritual war. It's Satan is Doctor Strange. And why did I even say this? Oh, because of the association with CERN. Yeah. How, when you look at the poster, it shows Doctor Strange stepping through a portal. And I'm like, this is what Satan's trying to do. He's trying to step into our world as a physical being and deceive humanity into thinking he's a savior.
Yeah, penance to God, their God, I guess, to shed so much blood that the portal opens.
Yeah. Wow, man, this is crazy.
So this is actually it. One of the depictions of it in Rome, I think.
So this was a portal?
This is an Ark of Baal.
Okay.
Or Arch, I'm sorry. I'm not sure which one it is, but they don't usually call it the Ark of Baal or the Arch of Baal. They'll leave that part off because Baal is not...
He doesn't have a good reputation anymore.
Right. They'll actually say it's the Ark or Arch of Palmyra. Palmyra is kind of associated with Babylon, and they don't want to say Babylon either.
Right.
So in media, that's what they will call it.
They'll call it what?
Palmyra.
Palmyra.
Which is fitting again, because again, trees, palm
trees, yeah.
The city probably maybe of trees. I don't know. I'm stretching there. I don't know, but I'm
maybe fact checker.
Yeah, maybe there's a connection there. So this is where we get into more of this connection between sex and yoga and sex positions and so on. Because when you go back and look at this, many temples, they have many depictions of all positions, basically, and bestiality and prostitution and polygamy and everything you could ever think of. But especially this particular temple. It is called the Temple at Konark. And in there you have adultery, you have showing orgies, oral, anal, everything.
What is this from, this article or whatever? This
is the extra.
Okay.
And someone
not a Christian magazine, I'm assuming?
No, not at all. And they were just shocked. They were shocked as
Wow.
a non-religious people
Yeah.
writing this, just how much disgusting, especially every position, every type of sex available was shown.
And the last word there,
Yes.
even bestiality.
Yes.
So these are depictions in that temple? Like
yes,
engraved or something?
I purposefully, and please be careful with your own eyes, I do not include many of these engravings for a reason.
Yeah. They're graphic.
They're very graphic, yes, of all of that. But here's where you find throughout the temple, all of a sudden you would recognize these poses from yoga.
Yeah.
And you're going, huh. So this is a sex temple, basically. But why on earth would they have yoga positions throughout? And this wheel has all the different salutations around the spokes, and that's the wall. The whole entire outer wall is actually covered by these wheels.
Interesting.
That have little people in the middle of each spokes and a certain position involved in yoga again. To actually greet the sun, I learned. When I looked it up, it was all about the positions of the sun in which you are glorifying and venerating it.
Wow.
So there's that connection. There is that. And so next there's Yoni or Yonic fertility cults, centered around female genitalia, of course. Those gods that are worshipped by doing so is Diana, Ishtar, Ashtoreth, Astarte, and Ashira again. It's the same as Baal worship, but it's using those different names and it's using those poles as sexual orgies locations, sexual orgy locations that you can just go and do that. These are the same, as I said, as your
So it's
Easter.
like a strip club.
Yes, so that's where a stripper comes from as well.
Wow.
You have the poles, you have the Rainman there, throwing money.
Whoa.
You got the connection coming actually full circle with music and people raving, and you got, clubs, women loosely dressed and so on. But that's really what's going on. I hate to say it, but really what's going on Easter Sunday, especially when you go to see the sun come up over the hill.
Yeah, they call it a sunrise service, and
Exactly.
churches are doing it.
And the practice was to catch the sun rays as the sun god appeared so that you could have this fertility. So you started jumping into your orgy as soon as possible.
I bet there's some
catch
people
that.
that even still do it just as a good luck thing. Like, you know what, maybe we should try to have a kid during the sunrise. And it's like I could see a Christian having like a lucky rabbit's foot or something and rubbing it. People don't really understand that this stuff is pagan. It's not just some fun thing to do. Like I used to be one of those Christians. When I was my first 8 years of being a Christian, I was so naive, so ignorant about so many things that I literally had Buddha statues and goats and all kinds. I've always been a collector of religious art. Before I was a Christian, I loved religious art. And so I had candles of Jesus and all this stuff. But I had tarot cards, and I thought, it's just like a fun parlor
Memento.
trick or whatever, and magic 8 balls and Ouija boards and all that stuff. Had no idea really what I was messing with and how deep and dark and demonic those things are.
Yeah.
I just thought they were like fun collector things or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So, just to explain it a little further, it wasn't just that the common folk and all the public could participate in this ritual of the poles having orgies, but it became kind of commonplace where there were actually female prostitutes set up to service you on Easter Sunday, especially not just in general worship of Ashira or Inanna. They also, it's recorded here that they use knives, whips, erotic dancing, and self-mortification. So that's where you get kind of unfortunate.
BDSM.
Yeah, you get the hardcore stuff.
Pornographic. No.
Yes, and they used lots of pentagrams and lotus flower depictions for female erogenous sites. That's always something that almost indefinitely symbolizes Yonic worship, so female genitalia worship.
And you see that lotus everywhere when it comes to yoga studios,
Eastern
and
medicine.
yeah.
But it's used in devil worship all the time, in witchcraft, of course. I'm just going to read what's there because I can't take it sometimes. It's used because you want to have deeper penetration and positions as part of understanding or sensing new levels of devotion to the gods.
Oh, wow.
You can even accomplish what you want to. You speak your desire of what you want fulfilled. You do the act. And it's said
a ritual.
that it happens.
It's a prayer, and you seal that prayer with some sexual ritual that only Satan would ask for.
Yep.
And then you probably will get it, because Satan loves to answer these wishes, law of attraction, all these things. It's deceived so many people.
Yes. So in the world of Shiva and Hinduism, you have the Kundalini, the serpent spirit, which is directly linked to this. And they actually use both the phallic symbol and the Yoni, which is where the yoga comes from. Again, this is not my words. For the practice of worshiping through sexual rituals, pouring milk on the stone image of the phallus, penetrating the Yoni, which is the lingam, that mound that we saw.
Yeah.
That's why you do it. It's part of the rituals, along with meditation, prayers, yoga, sexual practice to achieve transcendence. Marijuana was actually involved as well.
Interesting.
Food sacrifices offered to the image of Shiva, and transcendence is achieved through deeper penetration, like I said, and stretching. Again, you start realizing they don't care about the woman. They don't care when the knives and whips and erotic dancing and self-mortification and stretching of the female organs is involved. It is not at all for any pleasure.
Yeah.
It is seriously for the goal of transcendence and hurt. You don't care if you hurt the other person.
Yeah.
There's no respect. And it doesn't matter who you have sex with, just do it.
Right.
It'll be honored. It'll be glorifying to the gods.
So, we're not just talking about all this stuff because it's like, what did all the pagans used to do? We're showing how this is still prevalent in society today. It's accepted. Marijuana smoking, homosexuality, anal sex, all these things, the holidays that people are still participating in, the yoga. I mean, this stuff is like, when you say these words, it's like, yeah, that's our culture today. This isn't stuff that used to happen a long time ago, or, it's just been veiled, and Satan is deceiving everyone into doing these things and thinking it's okay. And now it's, in schools, Christian schools are doing yoga and meditation and mindfulness and all this stuff.
In churches.
Yeah, churches are doing it. Come to my church, we're doing yoga.
Yeah.
We're learning all the different sex positions and sun salutations, and it's just insane that this is happening in churches. Yeah, it's
we're
crazy.
just doing that to the image of God or to Bible verses, which you can't put two together.
Oh.
You can't. So I'm just going full circle. When I did this study, it was actually a study I did. Imagine that, of why we have so much junk in the world, why all of the pain, why all of the heartache, where did all this come from? And so I found out that pornography, of course, and you see that throughout all of paganism, like Mikey said, it's all naked bodies. It's a part of all sexual practices of the gods. Seeing and inciting lust and mimicking the sexual behaviors you see, looking at the statues and doing it. All of this proceeds from Baal because it's where it came from. It was the first pattern of doing this.
Wow.
So with rape, there you have it. ISIS and Islam and Hinduism with Zeus, Marduk, and satanic sexual practices or rituals. That's all I'm going to say about that. War and killing actually has its place. You think about it on a very disgusting level, a more criminal and disgusting mind type level. You would think that, of course, it has a place. But I didn't really want to know as much as they told me here, but we'll just go into it. All blood sacrifices, human, animal, or other, are made to conjure forces that collectively relate to satanic and Baphomet underworld realms, used by Satanists, witches, Luciferians, voodoo, Islam, along with drugs to allow one's body to be possessed by spirits to give control and feed into Satan's power.
You know how many soldiers actually were doing opium and all this stuff? So they'd literally do opium, be possessed by demons, and go out there and kill each other. Mm-hmm. Satan is just orchestrating this whole thing like a puppet master.
Yes. So the occult actually uses sacrifice and killing to cause disassociation, trauma, abuse, numbness, if you will, to develop split personalities and perverse coping mechanisms.
That's
like
the MK Ultra stuff.
Yep. To make sociopaths, psychopaths, and open doors to being used by Satan further in anger and hurt or mental illness. Okay. So then we have population control, which I was kind of shocked to find myself. I didn't know if it was real or not, but here we go. It says, and you can always go look at my sources. It says a new world order plan to kill others deemed unnecessary. So it's killing others off that are deemed unnecessary to the world.
Right.
Those who are, that means, and they're giving that definition of who those people are, those who are not in the elite group. Or the inner group, if you really want to state the truth there, they state it, the inner group of Baal worship.
They call them the useless eaters. That's who we are.
Oh, I see.
Because we're not in the club.
Walter Veith calls it the Goyim. You can look up that, and it has a lot more you can look up on that too. But
that's what the Zionists call us.
But they're using toxins, of course, air pollutants, birth control, sterilization, you name it, biological warfare, anything against us.
So I can think of a few things. Chemicals being sprayed in the air, chemicals being sprayed on the food, genetically manipulating the food, abortion, making homosexuality seem cool. All this is population control.
Yeah.
The more people who are homosexual, the less people procreate. The more you divide people, less people are even in relationships anymore. Not, LGBT aside, just in general, less people are having physical interactions. Everything's digital. People aren't in relationships anymore. Less people are having kids because they're focused on work or whatever. The whole thing is population control. Abortion, the pharmaceutical industry, all the toxics. Yeah, I mean, it's so clear that Satan is trying to destroy the world. He is the one who comes to seek, kill, and destroy. And he wants to lower the population so it's at a controllable manner for this new world order.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. So there's just a depiction of it. Drinking. This is part of Dionysus, Shiva, Odin, voodoo, and hoodoo. I didn't know if you guys knew that, but hoodoo is actually another name for voodoo.
Yeah, I have heard that.
It's a part of faith for pagans to do to honor their gods and ancestors. It's used to invoke spirits in ritual or ceremonial practices. Pagans emphasize drinking in moderation to keep balance of the good and evil, or yin and yang, or so on, within themselves. There's also Luciferian brewing and malting handicraft beers.
I'm a little too good. I need a little evil to balance out, so let me drink some. I think it's interesting that it's called craft beer.
Craft, yes.
Craft beers. Oh, witchcraft beers, right?
Yes. Being handy, of course, I don't think there's anything wrong with that word. But it has taken on that meaning, especially in witchcraft. You can be, as we use it in Hobby Lobby, I love doing crafts. I like being handy, right?
Right.
That means you can do all kinds of things. You might be good at weaving, sewing, whatever. That's not bad, but it's what it's used for. And unfortunately, that term was taken by the witches. They're quite handy people.
I'm saying there's a type of beer called craft beer.
Yes.
And if beer is the same as spirits, you got craft and spirits and the same thing. And it's like, he doesn't even hide, man. Yeah.
So anyway, there's that. Then the hexagram, a symbol used to invoke demons. It's not just a symbol. It is used for that.
The hexagram is what people know today as the Star of David. It's not a Star of David. There's nothing in the Bible about David having any star. It's a 6-point star. It's an ancient occult symbol, and it's satanic. It's crazy that Satan has deceived and duped the Christian world, where they all have that symbol on their cars and bumper stickers and flags even, and they're saying stand with Israel and all this stuff. Stand with the Zionists with your hexagram 6-pointed star.
Well, and that's the one of the points I make in the pagan origins video or presentation, because a hexagram takes on many forms throughout history as well. It doesn't have to be a full pointed star up or down or whatever, and you're just like, oh, there it is. Sometimes it doesn't even have a circle around it. Sometimes it doesn't have all of its points.
Yeah.
All these things, but it's still the same thing. They're hiding it. They're deceiving you.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's on the back of the dollar bill. If you trace, if you look at the pyramid, and then you trace, it actually spells the word Mason. If you connect the dots and point, there's words there, and you connect M to A to S to O to N. It's
just in case you didn't know who was in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's used to actually invoke demons, called Baphomet, or Kabbalah. It's used in Kabbalah to put hexes on others. That's why you say that. The origin is the hexagram shape that's on top of Saturn from NASA. Isn't that interesting?
What?
You get Saturn worship coming in here.
Wait a minute. So what does this mean? NASA shows a picture of Saturn and it's got a hexagram on it or something?
We're going to see one in a minute.
Okay, I have heard that they believe that the core of Saturn is a cube or a black cube or something. By the way, I don't believe in any of this junk. I don't believe the NASA. I don't believe that they know the core of any planet. It's ridiculous that anybody believes it. But I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yes. So, yeah, like he said, we're going to actually see that cube of Saturn, or that eye, the all-seeing eye, in a minute. But it's used in, hexagram is used in Hinduism, yoga, spiritualism, witchcraft, etc. Originally from Saturn worship. So that's where it's put in. By the way, there's a little connection, a little tidbit I'll give you. Saturn worship, or the god of Saturn, which is named Kronos, or even, let's just say St. Nicholas.
Oh, wow.
He is the god of Saturn, is actually known to change times and laws.
Wow.
So there's a god of time. That's why most of the time sheets that you have to fill out as an employee, most places, their time clock or their program for it is called Kronos.
Wow. You know, there's an interesting thing about, you said Saint Nick. Do you know that Nick is a name for Satan? I didn't know that, but you can Google it. Anybody can say it. I'll just ask Google real quick. Who is Old Nick?
According to vocabulary.com, definitions of Old Nick: noun, chief spirit of evil and adversary of God, tempter of mankind, master of hell.
And then it stops, but it says synonym: Beelzebub, devil, Lucifer, prince of darkness, Satan the tempter. That's who Nick is. Old Saint Nick. And, you know, Nickelodeon, the show that everybody watches now, they're just Nick. You go to nick.com, takes you to Nickelodeon.
Which the Bible actually speaks specifically about the Nicolaitans and how much God hates the Nicolaitans so much.
And what is Nickelodeon known for now with these documentaries coming out, Quiet on Set? Nick is known for abusing children, which is complete Satan worship. So you got this whole Goliath of a network that's all focused on children, and the actors are being abused, and they're programming children with this company called Nick. Nick at Night. And
these connections aren't coincidence. They're actually nods to each other again of biblical reference, like we're saying, of like God hated the Nicolaitans. What did they do? Probably the same thing that Nickelodeon's doing to children. Right. And so on.
What are things that God really hates? It's, well, he says that if you defile a young child, that you should have a millstone hung around your neck and thrown into the sea, like Jesus loves the little children, right? And yeah, I guarantee the Nicolaitans are doing that junk too.
Okay, so the hexagram, ironically, again, the symbol of the Jewish star, or Star of David, is not at all that. It was used by Hitler's friend named Rothschild, even though it is the Star of Remphan. And you might never have heard of that, but the Bible specifically, which I think the next slide is actually where the Bible is quoting what the Star of Remphan is. It's found in Amos 5:26, verse 26 and 27. Acts 7, verse 43. Please look that up. But Star of Remphan is actually the 8-pointed star, also known to be associated with the Roman god Saturn. There you go again. And possibly the Babylonian goddess Ishtar. Again, this was the internet giving me this, but their interesting connections they're drawing lead us right back to where we were. We've been studying this tonight. Pentagram itself is a 5-pointed star. Of course, we know that. The occult pentagram is an inverted 5-point star inside of a circle. Someone wrote in here that it's a triangle within a triangle. Yeah, that is true as well. But the Star of David at the very bottom here that we were speaking of is used in many ancient cultures. You'll find that again in many of the drawings and engravings in places for decorative purposes. But it held significance mainly because it's the Star of Moloch if you actually go look it up.
That's exactly what I was looking up right now.
Yes.
People say, Masons mainly say that this is a symbol that Solomon had on his ring, and he could control demons. I don't know where they get this.
That might be true because he went so far into the demon and witchcraft world by worshiping other gods and idols.
That's true.
I don't think that might be false. It might be true, but a lot of people are actually trying to mimic the kind of sorcery and depth of wickedness that Solomon got himself into.
Yeah, and rebuild his temple and all that. That's what the Masons are trying to do. That mason, what are they building? With bricks
Solomon's
and mason.
temple.
They're trying to rebuild his temple.
Yeah.
I looked up Star of Moloch, and the AI gave me this. Google now is using AI, but it says the Star of Moloch is a star mentioned in the Bible in the book of Amos 5:26 and Acts of the Apostles 7:43 in a context that suggests idolatrous, I don't know, idolatrous worship. The star is associated with the worship of idols, including, and this picture that it gives literally is showing crossing out the hexagram, the Star of David, quote unquote. And if you click on images to see what images you get, all the images are that picture. That is the Star of Moloch. So, the Bible never talks about a Star of David, but it talks about a Star of Moloch.
Right.
And you look it up, that's what it is. It's the hexagram. And Satan has duped humanity again, duped the Christians again, to where we're all flying that flag and stand with Israel. And I don't even believe that Israel is the Israel from the Bible. These white guys with the little curly locks, these are not Israel. This is Zionists. These are Zionist elitists who are trying to take over the world. A true Israelite is most likely dark-skinned and not the people that you think of as the Jewish nation.
So this is Saturn. This is supposed to be that picture from NASA of the cube. Yes, it is the North Pole of Saturn, the cube on it, but it's also supposed to be the all-seeing eye. I've heard some pagan blog stating that it actually is when you unravel the cube, it becomes the cross. And I think there's connection there as well. I think that actually was a nod, even way back when Jesus was crucified on it, that it wasn't just the cross of Tammuz, which
Pagans crucified him to that cross, and I think there was significance to that cross.
Yes, even to Saturn, I believe. So, because they worship Saturn openly, they worship Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, all of these planets. Anyway, next slide we could go to. Again, touches on this, again, because it's so important and it seems so... so prevalent in Baal worship. We're going to talk about this. Obscene sex rituals such as anal and oral are from Baal Peor. Now, Baal Peor is a Moabite god. That's another thing. I think, thank God. So Ruth was a Moabite. She prepared children for Chemosh, this burning of the children. She actually prepared children to go and be sacrificed as...
Ruth did?
She did.
Oh, wow.
That was her job in the palace of the king.
Oh, my.
And so when she would brainwash them, it was her job to groom the children to believe it was a honor to die for Chemosh.
Wow.
And for the entire city to live and have fertility and harvest and plenty. And so Ruth knows about this. She had to give it up, which I don't know how deep she was in it. Of course she was deep because she was grooming children.
Yeah.
And they didn't, it was like an annual or a festive thing where they would choose one special person, child, who had no blemish on them and everything. They had all these things they had to be.
A counterfeit of what God was requesting. God would never ask for a child sacrifice.
Right.
But Satan's using that same thing, a kid without blemish, all this stuff. Even that terminology, kid, that got entered into our culture. I hardly ever use that word kid, but they're children.
Yeah.
A kid is a goat.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that we're calling our children kids.
It's become our vernacular, so I never thought about it when I saw it.
I didn't know this about Ruth. This is interesting, but this is why I fell in love with this woman. She can teach me, and it's just, I love that we can do shows like this, and who would have known?
Yeah. So that's where it comes from again, but it's Baal Peor is actually a mount where the Jews, when they entered in and they saw a lot of the pagans around them worshiping and having these orgies, they actually set up their own altar, unfortunately. And they began at Baal Peor in this valley. I'll show a picture of what it looks like today soon. But it's where they started sacrificing their own children to Baal. And it was used or is still in Hinduism and Shiva worship of using different positions for sex like that. In Kundalini, for the fertility cults of yoga. Next slide. And this is where the Bible verse, I didn't just say that this happened in history. This actually happened in the Bible. Follow along with me here. It says, and Israel abode in Shittim, which is, sorry for that, but I think there's a connection happening here.
Yeah, where that cuss word came from?
Yes. And the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. So Moabitess, Ruth, Moabite god. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods. And the people did eat and bowed down to their gods. And Israel joined herself unto Baal Peor. So Baal Peor is like another variation of Baal, but they're going to tell you what it means. We're going to get into it. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And the Lord said unto Moses, take all the heads of the people and hang them up before the Lord against the sun, that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. And Moses said unto the judges of Israel, slay ye every one his men that were joined unto Baal Peor. So here we're going to get rid of it within our group. And behold, one of the children of Israel came and brought unto his brethren a Midianitish woman in the sight of Moses, in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping before the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a javelin in his hand. And he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. So the plague was stayed. It calls it a plague. Why? Because here's the connection. The Bible tells you continually not marry people who are foreign women, it says, unequally yoked, which means basically don't bring idol worship into your life. And don't
pagans who don't worship God.
Paganism, yeah. And it is something we have to be careful of. But once it happened in Israel, to cleanse it, unfortunately, God does this many times, and I'm not going to speak for him. Don't ask me why or how he can justify doing that, but he does. He cleanses usually his people by doing that.
Well, it's like cancer, you know?
Yeah.
The doctor tells you have a lump, and you're like, you know what? Just leave it there. I don't want to be
intrusive.
Yeah, I don't want to be a hater or intolerant of the cancer. No, you want it cut out, off of your body because it's going to spread. Yeah. In the same way, this has happened in these cultures, and God knew it. He knows the beginning from the end, and it is tough to understand and everything, but that was the reason.
Right. So there it is. There's proof straight from the Bible, Numbers 25, verse 1 through 9, and what God says to do about it. When we set up the United States and there was freedom of religion, we had to be tolerant of all of these things.
No,
It was law.
it's true.
But God tells us, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be hurtful or anything. I don't think we should be, I'm not wanting to be a killer or anything.
Right.
I'm just saying that God is going to cleanse his people. He's coming again. It's going to happen. But right now, there's time for the Gentiles, the word to go out to all the Gentiles. There's people in every walk of life who are in this or whatever they're into, which God is reaching out to. And he has an opportunity for them to come back to him and be in heaven.
Amen.
If
He
they
says,
choose to
come
turn
out of her,
away.
my people. He's calling them his people. But
Yes.
we're involved in pagan type things.
Yes. So, I think that's the same one I wanted to include this because this, again, that was the Bible. Now we're going to actually Hebrew. And we're going to look at the words Baal again. It means owner or lord. And then Peor actually means to open wide. And in the context of what we're looking at, it was all body openings and orifices.
Right.
So he's Lord of all of the orifices. Or Lord of the openings, as it said. I didn't get any of this from my own mouth. This was all quotes. And it says, AKA today, he's God of the holes. Okay, so that's what it was about. This is actually the Mount of Baal Peor today. The Ashira poles, and they're still there.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's like in the middle of nowhere.
exactly. On some mountain.
Which is where people try to meet God, in the mountains. So
So here's a connection I found in the Babylonian Talmud, which is interesting. Jews usually have a Talmud.
Right.
Well, when you follow the calendar through, the Hebrew calendar, they have all the same names for every month as the Babylonian calendar. And then they have, and I found out through this very research, here you have a Talmud that's Hebrew and a Talmud that is Babylonian.
Wow.
So where did the Talmud really, you know what I mean? Why are there two for different cultures?
Yeah,
Why
it's
do they
like
have the same
it's like
name?
the Holy Bible and Satanic Bible.
Yeah. So
But
anyway,
they're both bad in this case.
take that as you will, maybe research it for yourself, whatever. But I'm going to look into it more. But it says in that book, one story in the Sanhedrin, part of the Talmud, the rabbinical interpretation of the Tanakh, tells of Sabta, a Jew who attempted to show his contempt for Baal Peor. Sabta defecated in the temple and cleaned himself on the statue, only to be commended for his efforts. He then entered, uncovered himself before it, and wiped off on the idol's nose, whilst the acolytes praised him, saying, no man has ever served this idol thus.
Oh my goodness.
Rashi, a French rabbi of the late 11th century, said of Baal Peor that they would uncover before it. So it was part of their practice. He didn't even know that he was actually mimicking their very practice.
He was trying to defile it, and
Yes.
they were like, wow, what a great service you've done.
Yes, worshiping the god.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. They would actually uncover before at the end of the rectum and bring forth excrement. Unquote. I'm just reading what is there again. This is its worship. In light of this, we should be grateful that it was the Israelites' God who won this particular battle and who went on to create the dominant religion of the world.
That's something else I've seen in these satanic occult circles is they eat feces.
Yes, they do.
And so that is crazy. Satan, he's trying to make it the most disgusting things. And that's why you have things like anal sex that involve feces and everything.
Yes. So moving on from that, I wanted to even know why people have cussing. Where did that come from?
They call it curse words too,
Yes.
Cursing.
So it was actually from, I don't know where the earliest mention of it, but I actually found a goddess dedicated to this, to curses, and her name is Persephone. She would invoke demons by cursing to disperse evil on others when cursed in her name, known for pronouncing curses on others in this way. It's used in Wicca all the time. But you don't just say it in Persephone's name. In movies, they do this all the time. Have you noticed?
I don't know.
Okay.
What do they do?
We might show a quote or something if we could put this together later.
Okay.
But in movies, they'll actually say, they'll pronounce a curse like, in this God's name, curses this, 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 and this, and bring destruction upon this enemy, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You can choose whatever God you want
Right.
to back that curse up, but you're really just asking a demon to do it.
Yeah.
So they do that. It's used in Wicca, witchcraft, paganism, spiritualism, and Satans who fully understand they are honoring Persephone and these other gods when they do that. They're believing in it, they're trusting in them, they're giving them power to do it.
That is crazy because most of the time people cuss when they're so angry. And like, it's become so popular that people do it all the time now. It's like when they rap or when they, whatever, it's just part of an everyday life. But it's demonic. If you have so much rage that this comes out of your mouth, but then it becomes everyday normal, that's a problem.
Yes. And here's meditation. I know that the Bible tells us to meditate on God's word and fill our hearts with things that are pure and lovely and all those things. But a counterfeit of that is actual practice of meditation at the core of Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaic Kabbalism, Islam, and from the roots have leaked into Christianity.
Yeah.
Trying to unite worshiping other gods with worshiping Christ. That's really, they're telling you exactly why you do it.
And meditation is a biblical thing, but Satan has perverted that.
Yes. So quickly here, you can see all the gods mentioned for phallic fertility cults. Of course, Eros is for the erogenous sex points. That's why we have erogenous. It's the name itself. Let's see here.
Dagon, that's
Dagon,
the fish
god.
head that you see on the Pope.
Hermes.
The Pope that wears that hat, that tall hat, is a fish head, and it has a cape, and that's exactly what Dagon wore.
Yes. Hermes. There's the actual cross of Hermes that the Pope wears on his sleeve sometimes, or on his vestiges. So Min is also one of them. It's a Chinese god, which introduces, maybe he's not the first one, but masturbation, especially fondling and caressing of the phallic, and a whip in the other. So he was actually shown in this way whenever he was doing stuff to himself and others. And thus it comes into place that whipping sexually is okay. Sex and drunkenness for transcendence, and gagging, which you can read it there. I'm not going to say the rest.
Yeah.
Raving and clubbing, again, we tie that to Cybele, but it's also in Saturnalia pagan feasts in honor of Saturn, which was a week-long feast, December 17th through the 23rd. Kids were off school, slaves and servants were off, gambling and blood sacrifices, drinking, loud music, cross-dressing, any and all sexual license was there.
Wow.
You were only to wear your undergarments, and dolls were given out representing remains of human sacrifice to Saturn. Blood pudding was eaten to represent the blood itself of the sacrifice. It was a precursor to what we now call Christmas.
That is what these celebrities are doing, this spirit cooking stuff.
Yes.
When they have this cake that looks like a human body, and there's like this blood coming out of it.
Yes.
And many wonder if that's real or fake. In the sense of, it really is happening. These pictures are really posted on Twitter and all that, but people wonder if the blood is real.
Yeah.
This is a picture of depicting these raves.
This was the most tame picture I could find, and most, censored. Appropriate.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, it would look like that, and I do believe it was kind of like a mesh of people all around themselves, over themselves, having these relations.
Yeah.
The last one we come to is TV and video games and screens. This is actually a connection which shocked me. It does have direct connections to Saturn's black cube. Look that up. Please go look it up. It's also aka the swastika, a hexagram. It equals 666 when you add it up again, which was also the cross. 2 triangles over another. Someone mentioned the seal of King Solomon as he called upon demons. Masonic symbols, papacy symbols, skull and crossbones, the all-seeing eye, Saturn god of death, time and judgment, aka laws and times. Baal worship, Kronos, and Remphan. As mystical stories of Saturn goes, he's known for eating his children, and he went to do so, which his wife then offered him a large black stone instead, so that he devoured it as a replacement.
Oh, wow.
It's also known as Pandora's box, which correlates to the veil being ripped before Caiaphas and Ananias, who hated Christ and put him to death, who tortured and killed Jesus. Supposedly, the veil ripped in the sign of a cross, folded and became a cube or box. Opening the veil, or mysteries of God, became behind the veil, was to open Pandora's box, all the abominations of the earth. What do? We actually see all the abominations of the earth broadcasted through screens.
Yeah.
Your phone, your TV, whatever, screens. And I think Satan set that up so that we could indulge.
It is a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
It is a tree of knowledge. You know, God wanted to keep us from that tree of knowledge of good and evil, and now we have these devices with access to anything in the world. And ironically, the phone has that apple on it with a bite taken out of it. You're using that device, the tree of knowledge, to see all this stuff, and you type www to get to whatever you want to look at. And www is Hebrew for 666. Every letter is associated with a number, and so that's the Vav. That's the Hebrew 6. So we're typing 666 on a device with a bit apple with a tree of knowledge to see anything we want, all the dark things we want to see. And it's like we're just reliving this whole thing again.
Well, and they did that on purpose to speed up our indoctrination.
Yeah.
Right? They want their ruler to come, and they want us all to be a part of it and asleep to it all.
Right.
And so it's like, just allow them to view everything and anything. It really quickly...
Everything on demand.
Yeah, we'll do that. So just to finish this off, because it's a lot. Where were we? Oh, it's a symbol of the Kaaba or Allah in Mecca when they go on the pilgrimage around it in Islam. The cube, or cube with a K, symbolizes the emblem of the progeny of Abraham, which was rejected by the Israelites and became the cornerstone of what they think the kingdom of God is, or Ishmael's descendants. This is where this verse comes to mind. Psalm 118, verse 22. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. The Masons quote that all the time. Interesting.
Yeah, the capstone.
So here, this person wrote more, and I didn't have space on the slide. So here we have an actual depiction of what he's saying. It is said that the black stone fell from the sky, originally one of the precious stones of heaven, which Satan was covered in all these precious stones, but that God deprived it of its brilliance, which would have illuminated the world from one end to the other, aka the Holy Grail, coined by the Nazis, which explorer, Otto Rahn, who called the stone Lucifer's Grail originally. Folklore is that you see the stone and you get eternal life. That might be the pagans' view on these things and Satanists' views, but a box of viewing and learning all abominations containing all the evil of mankind, or the box of the unnatural and confinement, ironically, following all these teachings and everything becomes a cube you are shut up in.
Wow.
Lost and confused, a prison cell to separate man from God. While trying to fit everything inside the box, we have become imprisoned. This symbol is a symbol of human oppression.
This up here that says that a black stone fell from the sky, that is at Mecca.
That's right.
Which is a black cube, and inside that thing they have this black stone that came from the sky, and they all worship it. They, run circles around that thing and worship.
Which ironically...
Did you show a picture of that?
It's right there. I put a little... It actually... on this last slide...
Oh, the previous slide.
Previous slide.
That, yeah.
It was a little tiny...
Little...
Yes, emoji.
Oh my goodness, what happened here?
And so it's there, but also Cybele, a lot of the followers of Cybele had a black cube. That was her symbol, was a black cube, which again, I'm just going to make the correlation. The Jews wear a black cube on their head.
Yeah.
Supposedly to remind them of the laws, but if you really look deeper, not only do the Islamic people have the black cube that they're pilgrimaging around, you have the black cube and it's symbolism that goes into Judaism, and you also have it in Catholicism. So look that up as well. It's an interesting study.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Was that
it
the
in
last
entirety.
slide?
Yes, it is. But this is a showcase. This is for us to get it's quite deep, but it's also very general when you really are speaking of it so that we understand how to identify Baal worship in our culture today.
Right. And it's, this stuff hasn't gone away. It's just got a new disguise. That's what Satan loves to do, is disguise paganism and Satan worship in a way that looks fun. Hey, Halloween, it's about dressing up and candy and knocking on doors, and it's all a satanic practice. And then we're going to learn it's about Easter and Christmas and all these other holidays that we've even Christianized.
Yeah.
And you got the raves, you got women that are dancing for the Rainman to throw money, the Maypole. All these things are just sugar-coated and made to be culture and acceptable, and the homosexual lifestyle. I mean, really, I see Satan building his kingdom. He is building it, and that just means that Christ is coming soon. I see the world spinning out of control. I see people don't even bat an eye anymore at blatant wickedness. It's been so accepted now. And a huge part of it is the media, the influence of the media. I believe that this world would not be the way it is if television didn't exist, if phones didn't exist, if there was no media. And I'm not saying it's all the media. I'm not saying that media is all evil and all evil comes from media. But I'm saying that we live in a culture that says whatever is on the screen is reality, and life imitates art. We see that and we're like, oh, that's what a family's supposed to do. Oh, that's what's cool. Oh, the dude on stage is wearing those shoes. I got to wear that. She's wearing that bag. I got to wear that.
I think that's an interesting connection you're making, that what we see in art is like a model for us to pattern our life after, because Aleister Crowley actually writes that.
Wow.
That's how you actually can indoctrinate and channel demons and so on, by actually looking at art and following it.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, that is interesting. Aleister Crowley also practiced all this sex magic, all these.
Yeah.
He was a pedophile. He was a homosexual. And it just ties back to what this stuff is. So I pray you guys were, edified in some way. I pray that your eyes were opened. If you know people that are messing around with yoga, or who are, a homosexual ally, now we're being allies. Like, well, I'm not one, but I stand for, love and all these things. This is a deception on a worldwide scale, and Satan is this dragon who's deceiving the world through media, is a huge tool of his, and the world is just reaching the end. And I believe that Jesus is coming soon. I believe we need to share the truth far and wide. Things like this, use the internet while it's still free and accessible and not completely censored. Use it to reach the world. If you don't have any kind of material, no presentation, share your testimony. Do something with your life to where you're being used by God in some way, and that you can expand his kingdom when he comes. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We started this ministry 5 weeks ago, and I praise God that he's provided for us to do these things, to be able to have the equipment we need, to be able to make our bills. And it's a struggle, but we are trusting in God. We know that he's called us to do this. We know that he's put us together, and that we have this ministry. And so we need your support. This doesn't just happen on its own. If bills don't get made, then we got to get jobs again, and this channel shuts down. So if you want to support this ministry, you can do so by going to some of these. We got Cashapp, we have Venmo, Zelle, we have PayPal. If you want to buy a t-shirt, you can go to our Teespring and buy a t-shirt with our logo, and that, we'll get $5 off of a shirt or something. But there's many ways you can support this ministry, even just by sharing the video, liking the video, commenting on the video. All those things help this video get onto the algorithm, which can help the channel grow. And right now we're not even monetized. We could be, but we're hoping to just be able to depend on your support. And I've been amazed and blessed at the people who have already, before we even really had anything to show, have been saying, "What's your channel? I want to support you guys." And so we're doing this for you guys. We could keep this information to ourselves, but we want the whole world to know that, well, to see through deception. We've both been deceived. We've both been on the other side of this, and we don't want to see other people fall into these traps. You know, if you saw your friend walking towards a cliff, you would warn them, because you wouldn't want them to get hurt and fall into that trap. Did you have something you were going to say?
I just want to reemphasize, like, I have moments speaking on this topic. This doesn't thrill me to talk about any of this, the disgusting details, but it thrills me to expose deception so that it's like a door is unlocked.
Yeah.
You're no longer stuck in that. You can be freed of it too. Even if it wasn't some like huge prison you felt you were locked in or that you're participating in, there's things you didn't know that are actually a part of this worship that you are now aware of, that you can be freed of participating unknowingly in.
We actually have friends that said, I watched that program because she already gave this presentation before. And these are Christian friends. And they're like, you talked on something that we were practicing and we no longer do it because we know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And it wasn't yoga or any of those things. That stuff's happening in churches too. So, you know, I just pray that this was eye-opening and that if you're practicing any of this stuff, any of it, to pray and ask God to deliver you from these things, get these things out of your home, because you will not regret it. You'll have a closer relationship with God. You'll be, you know, the Bible says, flee from, resist the devil and he will flee from you.
Yeah.
So as we resist him by getting rid of his distractions, his idols, all these things, he will flee from us. And that's the best thing that could ever happen to us. So
right.
We love you. We thank you for being a part of this presentation. We hope that you'll give it a thumbs up. It really helps. Click the subscribe and the notification bell so that you won't miss a video. We're going to try to go live as much as possible. We don't have any kind of schedule. We just want to do this more than once a week even. And we hope that you guys will be blessed by it, and it's something that you can share with your family and friends. But we love you, and God bless, and we'll see you next time.